Hello, and once again, welcome to our daily reflection. Now, today, our reading is from Luke's Gospel and it's from chapter 6, beginning to read at verse 39. Jesus told them this parable. Can a blind man lead a blind man? Will they not both fall into a pit? A student is not above his teacher, but everyone who is fully trained will be like his teacher. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, "Brother, let me take the speck out of your eye," when you fail to see the plank in your own eye? You hypocrite! First, take the plank out of your eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. No good tree bears bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. Each tree is recognized by its own fruit. People do not pick figs from thorn bushes or grapes from briars. The good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and the evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For out of the overflow of his heart, his mouth speaks. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say? I will show you what he is like who comes to me and hears my word and puts them into practice. He's like a man building a house who dug down deep and laid the foundation on rock. When the flood came, the torrent struck that house but could not shake it because it was well built. But the one who hears my words and does not put them into practice is like a man who built a house on the ground without foundation. The moment the torrent struck that house, it collapsed, and its destruction was complete. Now, as the old saying goes, one picture is worth 1,000 words. And here, in quick succession, we hear 4 of Jesus's most vivid word sketches. And although there's a dry, perhaps typically Jewish humour running through all of them, what they have to say is deadly serious. Each one is a warning about the rival teachings which were doing the rounds in Jesus' day. And I believe that they apply just as well in today's times, challenging some of the current day theories about what human life should be like. Now, the sequence of these stories begins with the riddle about the blind leading the blind. And I think what Jesus is saying here is, beware of other teachings which look as though they're offering guidance, but will instead lead you into a ditch. The second picture, where Jesus says that a student cannot advance further than his teacher, may at first seem a bit puzzling, and you may think, well, why ever not? But Jesus was referring to one particular group of teachers, the Pharisees, saying in effect that it was no good studying with them because all you'll be at the end of the day is another Pharisee. He was challenging his listeners to break out of the molds that they were being offered and come instead to the startling new way that he was pioneering. The next riddle about the speck of dust and the plank is, of course, always a warning about a certain type of teaching. And what it's asking is, are you sure you can see clearly enough to lead, let alone criticize someone else? Now, this is a classic case of what psychologists call projection, where a person knows there's something seriously wrong with their own eye and tries to avoid the problem by telling someone else that there's a problem with theirs. These rival teachers were trying to fine-tune the law down to the last possible detail, whilst at the same time missing the law's major point. They were trying to make Israel holier and holier as a way of separating their nation from others, whilst really the whole point of Jewish law was to make Israel a light to other nations. They were hunting for specks in each other's eyes, but couldn't see that there was a plank, a massive disobedience in their own eyes. And of course, that picture continues to be relevant in our own day, where unfortunately some churches continue to make a fuss about the smallest details of presentation, whilst relegating the preaching of the word to a fairly minor role. There are many alternatives to Jesus' invitation out there today, but none of them touch the real problem or lead in the right direction. But then again, just listening to true wisdom without putting it into practice is also counterproductive. It's like building a house without good foundations, as Jesus says. Sooner or later, the floods will come, and then it will become apparent what sort of building you're actually living in. So then, the question that today's reading raises are a few. Are we so keen on looking for specks in other people's eyes that we can't see the planks in our own eyes? Do our plans and schemes look good on the outside, but leave the heart unmoved? Are we building without a solid foundation? As we ponder all these things, let's remember that whilst Jesus' radical offer of new life is all embracing, it's also all demanding. So much so that many will try to find an alternative way and then try to persuade us to follow them. So, my prayer as I leave you today is that we'll remember to hold these vivid word pictures in our hearts, doing our best to follow the directions they give, and making a real and lasting effort to live in the way that Jesus taught us. Amen.